How much of your peace right now depends on things you cannot control? The weather of other people's moods, what someone said or failed to say, a result you are waiting for, a past you cannot change, a future you cannot predict. We lie awake at night with our hands wrapped tightly around all of it, and we wonder why we cannot rest. Nearly 2,000 years ago, a former slave named Epictetus taught a single idea so simple and so powerful that it has quietly freed minds ever since. He opened his handbook with it. Some things are within our power and some things are not. Within your power are your thoughts, your choices, your responses. Outside your power is almost everything else. And nearly all of human suffering, he taught, comes from confusing the two, from trying to control what we cannot and neglecting the one thing we can. Tonight, we will gently practice the great Stoic art of letting go, not giving up, but releasing our desperate grip on everything that was never ours to hold. For there is a deep peace waiting on the other side of that release. The peace of setting down what you cannot carry. The peace of finally minding only your own part and entrusting the rest to life. Let this voice guide you through 12 reflections on the dichotomy of control, drawn from Epictetus, Marcus Aurelius, and the Stoic tradition that turned this one idea into a lifetime of serenity. You do not need to remember anything. You do not need to try. Just slow your breath, soften your hands, and let go. And perhaps tonight, as you release what was never yours to control, you will discover that peace was always waiting in the one small space that is truly your own. There are some ideas so simple that we are tempted to overlook them, and yet so profound that once truly understood, they reorder an entire life. The dichotomy of control is such an idea. It is the cornerstone of Stoic philosophy, and it begins with a single clear distinction. Some things are up to us, and some things are not. Epictetus, who taught this idea more powerfully than anyone, had earned the right to speak of freedom. He had been born a slave. He knew in his own body the difference between what others could control about his life and what they could never touch. They could chain his legs, but not his will. They could command his body, but not his judgments. And from that hard-won understanding, he distilled a teaching that has outlived empires. Some things are within our power, while others are not. Within our power are opinion, motivation, desire, aversion. In short, whatever is of our own doing. Not within our power are our body, our property, reputation, office, whatever is not of our own doing. Sit with how radical this simple sorting truly is. On one side of the line stands a small, quiet territory. Your own mind, your thoughts, your choices, the way you interpret what happens, the way you respond. This is the realm where you are sovereign, where no one and nothing can overrule you without your consent. On the other side of the line stands almost everything else in the universe. The weather, the economy, the past, the future, your body's aging, what other people think and do and say. This vast territory is simply not yours to command. We spend most of our lives with these two realms hopelessly confused. We pour our energy into the vast outer territory, straining to control outcomes, other people, and circumstances. And we are exhausted and anxious because that territory will never obey us. Meanwhile, we neglect the one small territory that is actually ours, letting our own minds be tossed about by every passing event. We try to rule what we cannot and abandon what we can. And in that confusion lies nearly all our suffering. But imagine the relief of finally drawing the line clearly. Imagine setting down the impossible task of controlling the whole world and taking up instead the one task that is genuinely yours, governing your own mind. This is not a smaller life, it is a freer one. For the person who has stopped trying to control the uncontrollable, has stopped fighting a war they could never win, and has found at last a peace that no external event can disturb. Tonight, let this one idea begin to settle into you. There is what you can control, and there is what you cannot. And almost all your peace depends on knowing the difference. We will spend this hour exploring both sides of that line gently until the knowing becomes a kind of rest. And it begins by looking closely at that small, precious territory that is truly your own. Let us look closely at the small but sacred territory that lies within your control, for it is far more powerful than its size suggests. The Stoics believe that although this realm is narrow, it contains the only things that truly matter, and the only freedom a human being can never lose. What, then, is genuinely up to you? Not your body, which ages and sickens regardless of your wishes, not your possessions, which can be taken, not your reputation, which lives in the minds of others, not even the outcomes of your best efforts, which depend on 1,000 factors beyond your reach. What remains, when all of that is set aside, is something quieter and more essential. Your judgments, the meaning you assign to what happens, your choices, the actions you decide to take, your values, what you choose to care about, and your responses, the way you meet whatever comes. This may sound like very little, but consider these are the very things that determine the quality of your inner life. Two people can face the identical circumstance, the same loss, the same insult, the same hardship, and live it in completely different ways because the event is not up to them, but their response to it is. Here in this small territory is where a life is actually made, not in what happens to us, but in what we do with it. Marcus Aurelius, who ruled an empire yet understood that his true kingdom was within, reminded himself of this constantly. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. The emperor of Rome, who could command armies, knew that his real power lay not in the vast world he governed, but in the quiet space of his own mind. If even an emperor located his strength there, then so can each of us, whatever our circumstances. And here is the beautiful thing about this inner territory. No one can take it from you without your permission. They can affect your body, your possessions, your circumstances. But the citadel of your own mind, your judgments and your responses, remains yours alone, as long as you choose to guard it. This is why the Stoics, even in chains, even in exile, even facing death, could remain free. They had located their freedom in the one place no one could reach. So tonight, let yourself rest in this quiet truth, that no matter what is happening in the vast world outside your control, there is a small space that remains entirely yours. Your response, your attitude, the meaning you choose to make. This is your sanctuary, always available, never able to be taken. And as you settle into sleep, you can let go of everything outside it. For everything that truly matters to your peace is already safe within. But to fully claim this inner freedom, we must look honestly at the vast territory on the other side of the line, at everything that is not and never was ours to control. If peace comes from knowing what is within our power, it comes just as much from honestly accepting what is not. And this is the harder truth, the one we resist with all our strength, that the vast majority of what we worry about lies completely outside our control. Tonight, let us name these things gently, not to despair over them, but to finally set them down. First, there is the past. It is finished, fixed, utterly beyond our reach. And yet how much of our energy goes into wishing it had been different, replaying it, jibooing with what can never be changed. Then there is the future, which has not yet arrived and will come in its own shape regardless of our worry. We cannot control it. We can only meet it when it comes. To lie awake trying to control the future is to fight a battle with a phantom. Then there are other people, perhaps the greatest source of our frustration. We cannot control what others think of us, how they treat us, the choices they make, whether they understand us or approve of us. Their minds are their own territory, as ours is our own. Every time we stake our peace on changing another person or on earning their approval, we hand our serenity to someone who was never meant to hold it. And then there is our own body. Its health, its aging, its eventual end. We can care for it, but we cannot finally command it. And there are circumstances beyond counting. The economy, the weather, accidents, the turning of fortune. The Stoics did not name these things to make us feel powerless. They named them to free us. For there is a profound and counterintuitive relief in fully accepting what we cannot control. As long as we secretly believe we should be able to control these things, every one of them becomes a source of anxiety and a measure of our failure. But the moment we accept honestly that they were never ours to command, the burden lifts. We stop carrying the weight of the whole world. We are responsible only for our small, true territory, and the rest we can finally release. Think of how much of what keeps you awake belongs to this outer realm. The thing someone said, the outcome you are waiting for, the mistake you cannot undo, the future you cannot secure. None of it is in your hands. And that is not a tragedy. It is permission. Permission to stop straining against the immovable. Permission to set down what was never yours to carry. Permission, tonight, to rest. There is an old prayer that captures this Stoic wisdom perfectly, asking for the serenity to accept what cannot be changed, the courage to change what can, and the wisdom to know the difference. That single sentence is the dichotomy of control, distilled. And the serenity it speaks of is not a distant hope. It is the natural result of drawing the line clearly and living on the right side of it. So tonight, gently release the outer territory. Let the past be finished. Let the future come when it comes. Let other people be who they are. Let your body and your circumstances be as they are. None of it is yours to control. And in that truth, if you let it, lies a deep and immediate peace. And understanding this line clearly reveals the true source of nearly all our suffering, and with it, the way out. Once we see the line between what we control and what we do not, a startling truth comes into focus, that nearly all of our suffering arises from a single error, confusing the two. We suffer because we try to control what we cannot, and because we tie our peace to outcomes that were never in our hands. Epictetus stated this with surgical precision. He taught that we are not disturbed by things themselves, but by our judgments about them, and that the deepest disturbance of all comes from demanding that uncontrollable things go the way we wish. When we desire something outside our control and do not get it, we suffer. When we are averse to something outside our control and it happens anyway, we suffer. Our emotional pain again and again traces back to this. We have set our heart on controlling what cannot be controlled. Consider how this plays out in an ordinary life. We become anxious because we are trying to guarantee a future we cannot guarantee. We become angry because we are trying to control other people who will not be controlled. We become bitter because we are fighting a past that cannot be changed. We become envious because we are measuring ourselves against circumstances outside our power. In every case, the suffering is born not from the event itself, but from our attempt to command what lies beyond our command. And here is the liberating implication. If suffering comes from confusing the two realms, then peace comes from separating them clearly. The Stoics discovered that when you consistently locate your well-being only in what you control, your own choices, responses, and character, and release your grip on everything else, a remarkable thing happens. You become, in a deep sense, invulnerable. Not because bad things stop happening, but because your peace no longer depends on them not happening. You have moved your treasure to the one place that cannot be robbed. This is why Epictetus could say that no one can harm you without your consent, that another person can strike your body or take your possessions, but cannot disturb your mind unless you let them. The harm we feel from insults, losses, and misfortunes comes largely from our judgment that these external things should have power over our inner peace. Withdraw that judgment, locate your peace within, and the world loses its power to wound you. None of this means we become cold or stop caring. It means we care wisely. We pour ourselves fully into our own efforts and choices, where our care can actually make a difference. And we release our anxious grip on results, other people, and circumstances, where our worry only torments us and changes nothing. We work hard and worry little. We act with full commitment and hold the outcome with open hands. Tonight, notice where your own suffering lives. Almost certainly, it lives in the outer territory, in something you are trying to control that you cannot. And simply seeing this clearly begins to dissolve it. You can stop fighting the uncontrollable. You can return to your own small, sufficient realm. And there, in minding only what is truly yours, you can finally find rest. And from this clear seeing flows the great gift the Stoics promised, the serenity that comes from letting go. When we finally stop trying to control the uncontrollable, something we have long been seeking quietly arrives. Serenity. Not the serenity of a life without problems. No such life exists, but the deeper serenity of a mind that has made peace with the limits of its power. This is the great reward of the dichotomy of control, and it is available tonight. Letting go is one of the most misunderstood ideas in all of philosophy. We hear it and think it means giving up, not caring, becoming passive. But Stoic letting go is none of these. It is not the abandonment of effort. It is the abandonment of the illusion that we can control results. It is doing everything within our power and then releasing our grip on everything beyond it. The farmer plants the seed and tends it faithfully, and then lets go of the weather, the harvest, the things he cannot command. This is not laziness, it is wisdom. It is the only sane way to live in a world we do not control. There is a profound physical relief in this kind of release. Notice how, when we are anxious, we literally tense. Our shoulders rise, our jaw tightens, our hands clench, as though we could grip our way to control. And notice how letting go feels. The shoulders drop, the breath deepens, the hands open. The body knows the truth that the mind forgets, that we have been clutching at what cannot be held. And that peace begins the moment we loosen our grasp. Tonight, you can let your body teach you. As you release each worry that lives outside your control, let your hands open, let your shoulders soften, let your whole body sink into rest. The Stoics found that this letting go did not make them care less about life. It allowed them to engage with life more fully and more calmly. Freed from the impossible burden of controlling everything, they could pour their energy into what actually mattered. Living well, acting with virtue, being present, loving the people before them. They traded the exhausting fantasy of control for the quiet power of presence. And in that trade, they found a peace that the anxious, grasping world around them could never know. There is a freedom here that nothing external can give or take. The person who has truly let go of what they cannot control is no longer at the mercy of fortune. They can lose and remain whole. They can be disappointed and remain at peace. They can face uncertainty, the very thing that torments most of us, with a steady heart because they have stopped demanding certainty from a world that cannot provide it. They have made peace with not being in control, and in that peace, paradoxically, they have found the only control that matters: mastery of themselves. So tonight, practice the gentle art of letting go. Bring to mind whatever you have been gripping: the worry, the outcome, the person, the past, and one by one gently set them down. Not because they do not matter, but because they are not yours to control, and holding them only steals your rest. Open your hands, soften your heart, and let the serenity that the Stoics promise settle over you as you drift towards sleep. And one of the heaviest things we learn to release is something we grip more tightly than almost anything else: the opinions of other people. Of all the things outside our control, few hold us as tightly as the opinions of other people. We shape our choices around them, lie awake replaying them, measure our worth by them. And yet what others think of us is, when we look honestly, entirely outside our control, and learning to release it is one of the most freeing applications of the dichotomy of control. The Stoics saw clearly that the opinions of others belong wholly to the other person. What goes on in someone else's mind, how they judge us, whether they approve or disapprove, all of this happens in their territory, not ours. We can influence it slightly, perhaps by acting well, but we can never control it. People will think what they think, shaped by their own moods, histories, and limitations, most of which have nothing to do with us at all. To stake our peace on controlling their judgments is to build our house on someone else's land. Epictetus put it bluntly. If you wish to improve, he said, be content to be seen as foolish or naive about external things. Do not let your peace depend on appearing wise in the eyes of others. And Marcus Aurelius, an emperor surrounded by flatterers and critics alike, marveled at how we love ourselves more than we love others, yet care more about their opinion of us than our own. He reminded himself that the approval of the crowd is a fleeting thing, and that to chase it is to hand the steering of your life to people who do not even know you. Think of how much of our anxiety dissolves when we truly release this. So much of what keeps us awake is the imagined judgment of others. what they thought of something we said, whether we measured up, how we are being perceived. But their opinions were never ours to control, and most of the judgments we fear exist only in our imagination. People think of us far less than we suppose. They are busy, like us, worrying about what others think of them. The vast courtroom in which we imagine ourselves on trial is, for the most part, empty. This does not mean we stop caring about others or behaving well toward them. It means we stop outsourcing our self-worth to them. We act with kindness and integrity because that is who we choose to be. That is within our control. And we release our grip on how others receive it because that is not. We do our part and we let their judgments be their own. In this way, we become free, no longer puppets pulled by the strings of approval and disapproval, but people anchored in our own values. There is enormous peace in this freedom. Imagine no longer needing everyone to approve of you. Imagine being able to act according to your own conscience and then letting others think what they will. Imagine the quiet that comes when you stop performing for an audience whose verdict you could never control anyway. This is the freedom the Stoics found, and it is available to you. So tonight, gently release the opinions of others. Whatever judgment you have been carrying, real or imagined, set it down. It was never in your control, and it was never the true measure of your worth. You are free to be who you are and to let others be who they are. Rest in that freedom and let it carry you towards sleep. Perhaps the hardest thing to release and the most freeing is our grip on outcomes. We work, we strive, we hope, and then we lie awake clutching at results that have already left our hands. The Stoics taught a wiser way, to give ourselves completely to our efforts and then to release the outcome entirely, because the effort is ours but the result never was. There is an ancient image that captures this perfectly. The archer. A skilled archer does everything within his power. He chooses his target, draws the bow with care, steadies his breath, takes careful aim. All of this is within his control, and he gives it his full attention and skill. But the moment the arrow leaves the string, it passes out of his control forever. A sudden gust of wind, a movement of the target, some factor he could not foresee, these now decide whether it strikes. The wise archer, the Stoics said, gives his whole effort to the shot and then releases all attachment to whether it hits. His success lies in shooting well, not in the hitting, because only the shooting was ever truly his. This is a transformative way to live. We are taught to measure ourselves entirely by outcomes. Well, did we win? Did we succeed? Did we get the result? But outcomes depend on countless factors beyond our control, and so to stake our peace on them is to live forever at the mercy of chance. The Stoics shifted the measure inward. Did I give my genuine best? Did I act with integrity and full effort? That is what is up to me, and that is where I will locate my sense of a life well lived. The rest, I release. Notice the extraordinary freedom this brings. When your peace depends on results, every effort is shadowed by anxiety, because the result is never guaranteed. But when your peace depends only on giving your best, which is always within your power, you can act wholeheartedly and rest easily, regardless of how things turn out. You become free to try, free to risk, free to pour yourself into what matters, because failure can no longer touch your core. You have already succeeded the moment you have done your part well. This is not indifference to results. The archer still aims to hit. He simply does not tie his soul to the hitting. We still hope our efforts bear fruit. We simply stop demanding that they must. Stop lying awake trying to force an outcome that will unfold as it will. We hold our goals firmly enough to pursue them with everything we have, and loosely enough that we are not destroyed if they slip away. This is the balance of a peaceful and effective life. So much of our sleeplessness is the anxious rehearsal of outcomes we cannot control. The result of the test, the decision of another, the success of some effort already made. Tonight you can release all of it. You have done your part, or you will do it when the time comes. The outcome is not yours to command, and gripping it through the night will not change it by a single degree. Let the arrow fly by. You aimed as well as you could, now rest. And once we have released outcomes, the Stoics offer one final refinement that makes this practice even gentler, a subtle shift in where we place our goals. There is a subtle refinement to the dichotomy of control that brings even deeper peace. And modern Stoics have called it the trichotomy of control. It recognizes that between the things fully within our power and the things entirely outside it, there is a middle ground, situations where we have some influence but not full control. And it offers a beautiful way to handle them, by setting internal goals rather than external ones. Consider an example. Suppose you want to succeed at something that depends partly on you and partly on factors you cannot control. A relationship, a project, a goal that others also shape. If you set your goal externally, I must achieve this result, you have staked your peace on something not fully in your power, and you will live in anxiety. But you can reframe the very same pursuit as an internal goal. I will do my absolute best, act with integrity, and give this my full effort. Now your goal is entirely within your control. You can achieve it completely, regardless of the external result, simply by doing your part well. This small shift changes everything. The athlete who makes it his goal to win is at the mercy of his opponent, the conditions, sheer luck. But the athlete who makes it his goal to perform at his very best has set a goal he alone controls. And paradoxically, by removing the anxiety of needing to win, he often performs better and is more likely to win anyway. The Stoics understood this deep truth, that we succeed most fully and suffer least when we measure ourselves by our effort rather than by results we cannot command. Apply this to the worries that fill an ordinary life. You cannot control whether someone loves you back, but you can control whether you love well and honestly. You cannot control whether you get the job, but you can control how thoroughly you prepare and how truthfully you show up. You cannot control whether your child turns out exactly as you hope, but you can control the care, patience, and love you offer. In each case, you take the goal out of the uncontrollable realm and place it firmly in your own, and your peace becomes secure because it now rests on something no one can take from you. There is great gentleness in this practice. It does not ask you to stop caring about results or to pretend you have no preferences. It simply moves the foundation of your peace from the shifting sand of outcomes to the solid rock of your own effort and character. You may still hope for the external result, and you can pursue it with all your heart, but your serenity no longer depends on it. You have given yourself a goal you can always reach, to be, today, the best version of yourself that you can be. So tonight, take whatever you have been anxiously hoping for and gently turn it inward. Not will this turn out the way I want, which you cannot control, but did I or will I give my honest best to it, which you can. Rest in the knowledge that your part is the only part that was ever yours, and that you can fulfill it completely. The rest belongs to life, and you can entrust it there as you sleep. And this inward turning transforms not only our goals, but the very questions we ask ourselves in the face of difficulty. The way we meet difficulty is shaped, more than we realize, by the questions we ask ourselves. And one of the most practical gifts of the dichotomy of control is that it changes our questions, from ones that trap us in helplessness to ones that return us to our power. When something difficult happens, the mind's first question is almost always one that points at the uncontrollable. Why is this happening to me? Why did they do that? Why can't things be different? These questions feel natural, but notice where they lead: into resentment, into rumination, into a helpless circling around things we cannot change. They keep our attention fixed on the outer territory, the realm where we have no power, and so they leave us feeling like victims of our circumstances, awake and churning in the dark. The Stoic shift is to change the question. Instead of, why is this happening, we ask, what is mine to do here, Swam? What part of this is within my control? How shall I respond? These questions point us back to our own territory, the one place where we have power. They transform us from passive sufferers of circumstance into active authors of our response. The situation may be exactly the same, but the question we ask about it determines whether we drown in it or rise to meet it. This is not a denial of pain or a forced positivity. When something genuinely hard happens, we can acknowledge it fully as, yes, this is difficult, this hurts. But then, rather than staying trapped in the unanswerable why, we gently turn to the answerable what now. What response is available to me? What can I learn? What is the next right action within my power? Even when the answer is simply, I can choose how I carry this, that is enough. For in any circumstance, however dire, the freedom to choose our response remains. Marcus Aurelius modeled this constantly. Faced with difficult people, betrayals, illness, the burdens of empire, he did not waste himself asking why fate had dealt him such things. He asked what virtue the moment called for, what response was worthy of him, what was within his power to do well. He treated each obstacle not as an injustice to be lamented against it, but as material to be worked with. And in doing so, he kept his power and his peace, even in the hardest of times. You can practice this same shift in any moment. When you catch your mind spinning around something you cannot control, a why that has no answer, a circumstance you cannot change, gently ask instead, what is within my control here? Sometimes the answer is an action. Sometimes it is simply your attitude, your acceptance, the meaning you choose to make. But always there is something in your territory to attend to, and turning toward it returns your power and quiets your mind. Tonight, if your thoughts keep circling some difficulty, try changing the question. Not why is this happening, which only deepens the churning, but what, if anything, is mine to do? And what must I simply accept? And when you have seen clearly what is yours and what is not, you can act on the one and release the other, and let your mind finally rest. And this brings us to the heart of how control and acceptance work together, not as opposites, but as partners. It would be easy to misunderstand the dichotomy of control as a teaching of pure acceptance, as though the wise response to everything were simply to surrender. But the Stoics taught something more balanced and more powerful, that control and acceptance are partners, each applied to its proper realm. The art of a peaceful life is knowing which to apply and when. The old prayer says it perfectly: the serenity to accept what cannot be changed, the courage to change what can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Notice that it asks for both serenity and courage. Pure acceptance, applied to everything, would become passivity and resignation, accepting even what we could and should change. Pure striving, applied to everything, would become exhaustion and anxiety, fighting even what we cannot change. Wisdom lies in the discernment between them, acting with courage on what is within our power, and accepting with serenity what is not. This is why the dichotomy of control is not a recipe for passivity. The Stoics were among the most engaged and effective people of their time: generals, statesmen, teachers, emperors. They did not withdraw from the world, they acted in it vigorously. But they acted only on what they could actually affect, and they accepted what they could not. They poured their courage into their own choices and efforts, and they poured their serenity over everything beyond their reach. And because they were not wasting their energy fighting the immovable, they had more strength for the things they could genuinely change. Think of how this transforms our relationship with a difficult situation. First, we ask, is any part of this within my power to change? If so, courage. We act, we do our part, we change what we can. Then for whatever remains outside our power, serenity, we accept it, release it, make our peace with it. Almost every situation contains both, something to be changed and something to be accepted. The skill is to sort them and to bring the right response to each. We do not passively accept what we could improve, nor do we anxiously battle what we cannot. There is deep peace in this balance. It frees us from two opposite torments: the torment of passivity, in which we accept what we should be changing and feel powerless, and the torment of futile struggle, in which we fight what we cannot change and feel exhausted. Between these lies the Stoic path: full, courageous engagement with our own territory and full, serene acceptance of everything else. This is not a lesser way of living. It is the wisest and most peaceful way there is. And notice that even acceptance is, in a sense, an act of control, for it is a choice, and the choice is within our power. We cannot control whether a hardship comes, but we can control whether we meet it with bitter resistance or with calm acceptance. In this way, even the things outside our control offer us a chance to exercise the one power that is always ours, the power to choose our response. Acceptance is not defeat. It is the active, dignified choice to stop fighting what cannot be changed. So tonight, as you rest, let both serenity and courage be present. For whatever you can change, hold the quiet resolve to do your part when the time comes. And for everything you cannot change, which is most of what fills an anxious mind at night, let serenity wash over it. You have sorted what is yours from what is not. Now you can act on the one tomorrow and accept the other tonight, and rest in the peace that this balance brings. And living this way, day after day, leads us to the deepest gift of all, a freedom that no circumstance can ever take away. At the heart of the dichotomy of control lies a vision of freedom unlike any other, a freedom that does not depend on our circumstances, our wealth, our health, or our fortune, but that lives entirely within us, and so can never be taken away. This is the freedom the Stoics prized above all else, and it is the deepest reward of everything we have explored tonight. We usually imagine freedom as the absence of external constraints, the freedom to do what we want, go where we please, control our circumstances. But the Stoics saw that this kind of freedom is fragile and incomplete because our external circumstances are never fully in our control. Illness can come, fortune can turn, others can constrain us. If our freedom depends on the world cooperating, then we are never truly free. We are always at the mercy of conditions we cannot command. Epictetus, who had been a slave, knew that external freedom can be taken in an instant. But there is another freedom, an inner one, that no chain can bind and no misfortune can steal. It is the freedom of the mind, the freedom to choose our judgments, our responses, our attitude, regardless of what happens to us. This freedom does not depend on circumstances at all. A person can be imprisoned and yet free in their mind. A person can be wealthy and powerful and yet enslaved by their fears and desires. True freedom, the Stoics taught, is not about controlling the world. It is about mastering yourself, about being the sovereign of your own inner territory, no matter what is happening outside it. This is why the dichotomy of control is ultimately a path to freedom. Every time we release our grip on what we cannot control, we loosen a chain that bound us to the external world. Every time we locate our peace within, in the one territory that is truly ours, we become a little more free, a little less at the mercy of fortune, of other people, of outcomes. The person who has fully embraced this teaching has founded a freedom that no king can grant and no tyrant can take. The freedom to be at peace regardless of circumstances. And there is a quiet dignity in this freedom. It means that no one and nothing can make you bitter or anxious or small without your consent. The world can do what it will with your body and your circumstances, but the citadel of your mind remains your own, governed by you alone. This is not a freedom that must be earned through achievement or granted by others. It is your birthright as a thinking being, available the moment you claim it, the moment you decide that your inner life belongs to you and to no one and nothing else. To live this way is to be unshakable, not because life stops bringing storms, but because you have built your house on the one ground that does not move. Outer circumstances will rise and fall, as they always have, but within you remain free. Free to meet whatever comes with your own chosen response. Free to keep your peace in any weather. Free in the deepest sense a human being can be. So tonight, rest in this freedom. Whatever is happening in the vast world outside your control, the small kingdom of your own mind remains yours, sovereign and free. No one can enter it without your permission. No circumstance can rule it without your consent. This is your freedom, and it is unconditional, and it is yours right now as you let go of everything else and sink into peaceful sleep. And so we come at last to how we carry this ancient freedom into the ordinary rhythm of our days. The dichotomy of control is not a single insight to be grasped once, but a practice to be lived daily, a lens we learn to look through until, gradually, it becomes the natural way we meet the world. For the wisdom of this teaching reveals itself not in understanding it, but in returning to it again and again until it quietly transforms how we live. The Stoics wove this practice into the rhythm of their days. In the morning, they would prepare their minds, anticipating that the day might bring things outside their control, difficult people, frustrations, setbacks, and reminding themselves in advance, I will meet what comes with my own chosen response, and I will not stake my peace on what I cannot command. This simple morning preparation meant that nothing could ambush their serenity, because they had already drawn the line between what was theirs and what was not. Throughout the day, the practice is to catch ourselves in the moment of confusion, the moment we begin to grip something outside our control. When you feel anxiety rising, you can pause and ask, is this within my control? If it is, you can act. If it is not, you can practice release. This single question, asked again and again throughout an ordinary day, slowly retrains the mind until releasing the uncontrollable becomes not a struggle, but a reflex. Stuck in traffic, you release. Criticized unfairly, you release. Waiting on a result, you release. Each small act of letting go strengthens the habit of peace. And in the evening, as we do now, the Stoics would reflect gently on the day, noticing where they had wasted energy trying to control the uncontrollable, and where they had successfully kept their peace by minding only their own territory. Not to judge themselves harshly, but to learn and to meet the next day a little wiser. This gentle evening review is how the practice deepens over time, how the line between what we control and what we do not grows clearer and more instinctive. The beauty of this practice is that it meets you exactly where you are, in any circumstance. You do not need to change your life to practice the dichotomy of control. You need only to keep asking in each moment, what is mine here and what is not, and then to act on the one and release the other. From this single repeated practice flows everything the Stoics promised: serenity, freedom, resilience, and a peace that does not depend on the world going your way. And perhaps the most reassuring thing of all is that you cannot fail at this practice permanently. You will forget, you will grip the uncontrollable again and again. Everyone does. But each time you notice, you can simply return. Return to the line. Return to your own territory. Return to peace. The practice is not perfection, it is return. And every return makes the path a little clearer and the peace a little deeper. So tonight, as the final practice of your day, let the dichotomy of control give you its parting gift. Look back gently on the day and release everything in it that was never yours to control. The things others did, the outcomes you could not command, the moments you cannot change. Keep only what is yours, the knowledge that you met this day as best you could. And as you prepare for sleep, draw the line one last time. Everything outside your control, you set down for the night. Everything within it, your peace, your rest, your gentle letting go, you claim as your own. And in that small, sovereign space, you find everything you need to rest. So we have spent this hour with one of the simplest and most liberating ideas ever taught: the dichotomy of control. We have learned to draw the line between what is ours and what is not, between the small, sovereign territory of our own judgments and choices and the vast world beyond our command. We have seen that nearly all our suffering comes from confusing the two, and nearly all our peace from separating them clearly. We have practiced releasing outcomes, the opinions of others, and the future we cannot control. We have learned to set inner goals, to change our questions, to hold courage and serenity together, and to find the one freedom that no circumstance can take. But if you keep only one thing from tonight, let it be this gentle truth: you are responsible for your own small territory and free from the burden of everything else. You do not have to control the world to be at peace. You never did. You have only to mind your own part, your choices, your responses, your character, and to release with open hands all the rest. In that release lies a freedom and a serenity that no external thing can give or take. The night has grown deep, and there is nothing left to do but let go. Release the day that is finished, which is no longer in your control. Release the future that will come in its own shape, whatever you do tonight. Release the worries about other people, about outcomes, about all the things your hands were never able to hold. You have done your part. The rest belongs to life. Let your hands open, let your shoulders soften, and let the vast, uncontrollable world go on turning without you for these few quiet hours. Thank you for spending this hour with these ancient reflections. If they have brought you even a little peace, return whenever your mind grips too tightly. And if you wish to walk these quiet paths again, you may leave a small mark of stillness by subscribing. And now let everything grow light. Hold only what is yours, release all the rest, and let yourself be carried gently into sleep. May you rest deeply and wake tomorrow free to mind your own peace and to let the rest of the world be. Good night.